Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. I thought I'd continue on with the series for recent grads, and in previous episodes we talked about what you would do if you were not employed, so you recently graduated out of university college and you didn't have a job. So if you're in that situation, then take a look at one of our previous episodes. We also tackled if you do have a job, but not necessarily in your area of interest. Take a look at one of the previous episodes for that one. And in this episode, I wanted to tackle the folks that got a job in their area of interest. And I usually put this person in the category of growth, right? So you're doing the things that you want to be doing in your area of study, in your area of interest, and you have that job and you just want to progress, you want to get promoted, you want to move up, you want to just grow in that. So not necessarily in title, but also in understanding and achievement and value. So what I encourage folks to do there is to basically take the time to grow, right? And literally allocate some non-negotiable time. So that's half an hour, or even more in your day where you spend on growing yourself, right? So I often like folks to put in half an hour in the morning just after they wake up, or an hour in the morning, maybe half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, or some sort of combination that allows you to actually invest the time, right? And during that time, you would do things like journal. So in the previous episode about trying to find your purpose and what you want to do, you can include that 5-2-2-1 journaling. Again, that's 5 minutes journaling, 2 minutes on what drained you, 2 minutes on what energized you, and then 1 minute on how can you minimize the things that drain you, and maximize the things that energize you, right? And looking to be as specific as possible, really looking for those patterns and trying to incorporate more of that into your day, right? So that's only 5 minutes of that half an hour, that 60 minutes that's around. Well, what do you do with the rest of the time? Well, I would imagine that you should incorporate some of your personal development. And personal development could be health, right? So it could be the physical health, put in that exercise routine, the body movement, hit the high intensity interval training, or whatever it is. I myself just do some body weight exercises. I'll do push-ups, I'll do squats, I'll do crunches, I'll do things like that. 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, right? And the goal is to be consistent. Ideally, even every day, even weekends to do that, right? So there's no point in necessarily taking a day off. If you think about taking the weekends off, that's like 15-20% of the week that you're potentially losing, right? So just being aware of your health. It could also be not just your physical health and exercise, it's your nutrition. So making choices to eat better, right? So researching recipes, or going to the grocery store and buying yourself some healthier snacks, that sort of thing. Increasing your physical health, both in the exercise realm and the nutrition, and maybe sleep. Maybe that's something that you need to cultivate, right? So when I was younger in university, like 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep was kind of normal, right? And even in my working career, I would pride myself on how little I slept. But I found that was a detriment to me, where having had a good night's sleep and be able to function at peak performance is so much better, right? And oftentimes it's that sustainability as well. So look at some research on how to get better sleep, be it a blackout liner of curtains, a screen or caffeine curfew, or just cooling down your room. That sort of thing. And there's all sorts of different things that you can take a look at to improve your sleep. So you might invest that time to improve on your physical health. The other thing you might want to do is work on your mental health, right? So there's a huge movement right now to do things like meditate, right? And be more mindful. So maybe you add a bit of a meditation regime, right? And I found there's actually as many types of meditation as there are kind of exercise, right? So there's more kind of the transcendental ones where you use a word or a phrase that you repeat to yourself, just kind of a mindfulness meditation where you try to focus and label your thoughts. There's Vipassana. There's the one that I actually subscribe to are more like the Eco meditation from Dawson Church, or Ziva meditation from Emily Fletcher. I like those ones because they're very active meditations, right? So it's not necessarily you're just sitting there observing your thoughts. You're actually doing a lot of things, which I found a little bit better and helpful for me. Another thing you can do is to reflect on yourself. So doing things like The Work from Byron Katie, right? And a lot of self-inquiry to figure out all those negative thoughts, those thoughts that don't serve you. How can you help them to serve you in the future? How can you adjust them and get rid of some of those negative thoughts and embrace them, and then transform them into positive thoughts, ones that serve you, right? So mental wellness is such an important thing for you to take care of. So in that non-negotiable time when you want to grow yourself, spend it on your mental health. It could also be your financial health. So now that you're working and you have a consistent paycheck coming in, or you're having some side income or whatever, then what are you doing with it? Hopefully you're saving it, taking a look at putting it into a TFSA if you're in Canada, or an RSP, or the equivalents in the US are like the IRAs and the 401ks, right? So how are you putting that into investment vehicles that will help you, and how are you growing it, right? Generally speaking, it's going to be one of those kind of low fee index funds that'll help you grow if you don't want to worry so much, but you can be more active in trading as well. Be aware of things like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, and people getting to invest there. It's quite speculative at the time, so there's a lot of money to be made and also a lot of money to be lost. So just be wary of that. You can also consider, well, how do you get into the real estate market or build some other sort of asset in order to help your money grow and compound over time. But the point is, when you start earlier, then you have your money work for you as well. So taking a look at your mindset when it comes to money. So I was very challenged in my mindset where when growing up, there was a bit of a scarcity mindset. So thinking about how do you cultivate an abundance mindset, and knowing that the money is there. One of the interesting things that I found recently is to arigato your money, right? And what that is arigato is a Japanese term for thank you. And what you want to do is be thankful of money going out, be thankful of money coming in. And just that simple act of gratitude for all this money can be so game changing, right? So maybe it's your financial health that you want to invest in. And there's so many different books and resources that you can go out to. Take a look at things like The Wealthy Barber, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Lots of great resources out there, and so many others that could really help you. So take that time to invest and learn and grow, and pick some sort of scenarios that resonate with you. Another area could be your relationships. So whether it be your parents, your significant other, your siblings, your cousins, your close friends, right? How can you cultivate those relationships? And if you get those basics, then you'll definitely have a very impactful life, and that'll carry on into your career, that'll carry on to the rest of your life. But if we get into the topic of professional development, then it's allocating some time to grow in that area, right? And I usually bucket it into a couple of areas. So the first one is in communication. Next is in social, then in thinking, in your mindset, execution, creativity, and leadership, right? So communication, that's in presentations, verbally, it's in written, it's creating reports, it's your rapport with other people as well. So just because you're good at emails doesn't necessarily mean that you're great at presentations for business cases and presenting your ideas to your leadership and things like that. Those are all skills that need to be cultivated. So I encourage you to invest in things like Toastmasters, right? So that's a public speaking organization that's out there to help you cultivate your ability to speak, right? So investing the time to do that, even taking a look at stuff like professional writing courses, right? How do you make yourself clear and more concise in terms of the emails that you send? And even taking a look at models like the DISC model, the DISC, where it puts people on different spectrums of being either task focus or people focus, or assertive or more passive, right? And in those 4 boxes of quadrants, if you kind of divide it into a square, then people who are on different spectrums communicate differently, right? And if you've ever been in a situation where you've explained it so many times to someone else and they still don't get it, right? Oftentimes it's because you're probably in an opposite communication style. So it's a matter of not necessarily labeling people, but just recognizing that people communicate differently. And then how do you communicate differently to be more effective in your communication, right? So pretty much every job that you'll do out there has some sort of communication. Sometimes it's more on the 80% side that you're doing it. Sometimes it's more on the 20% side that you're doing it. But at some point you will have to communicate your ideas out there. I was in computer science, so I thought I didn't need to communicate. I would just code and it would be awesome and fantastic. But I had people that kind of were getting promoted ahead of me and moving up. And I was like, well, what's happening here? Well, it's because they were able to communicate a lot better than I was. And when you are able to embrace that necessity, that it is a human need to communicate and a human concept in order to be able to share those ideas, then it's something that can help you grow. And then that kind of leads to the second one about being social, right? So it's similar to your personal health about developing your relationships, but this is more along the lines of teamwork or conflict resolution, right? Because your family, you kind of have to deal with them. Your friends, you can kind of choose, but your coworkers, not necessarily, right? So there might be that colleague that you don't like or doesn't like you, whatever that case may be. And using something like the DISC model or whatever to kind of understand, well, what are our differences? Why do we miscommunicate? Why don't we understand each other? And investing in your relationships. So using things like the 5 appreciation languages to really understand how you can connect with someone, right? So you can use that in your personal relationships too. It comes from the 5 love languages from Dr. Gary Chapman. So take a look at that. And the more that you appreciate people and the more that you love people for the way they are and focus on the platinum rule instead of the golden rule. For those that know the golden rule, it's do unto others as they would have done unto you. But the platinum rule is a level differently, where it says, do unto others as they would want to have done unto themselves. So really it starts with empathy and knowing what that other person wants, and then doing that appropriately, right? So developing your social skills, however you might be, it might be reflecting on relationships, finding these new models, and oftentimes just growing, right? To think about your interaction with your teammate today and say, okay, what did I do well and what could I have done better? And with pretty much anything, if you can use that model, then you'll continue to grow and grow and grow. The other part is about thinking, right? Are you good at problem solving? Are you good at critical thinking, right? And it's a skill. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not logical and I can't do that. Well, it's a skill. And you don't necessarily have to be the world's greatest, but what you want to do is be good enough so you can kind of decipher and decompose problems, right? Now, if that is not one of your forte, then you don't necessarily need to spend a ton of time on it. But if that is something, then take a look at different mental models, right? There's things like the Edward de Bono's the 6 thinking hats, or the great mental models as well by I think it was Shane Parrish. So take a look at those different ways of thinking. Annie Duke has one on how to make decisions, right? She's a poker player that's out there, and she constantly has to make decisions and weigh the odds of things like that. So it's a very interesting way to look at how to imagine your thinking. And related to thinking is also your mindset. So we mentioned that a little bit for your mental fitness, right? But doing that from a work context, right? So what do you think about your career, your progression, your limiting beliefs, right? Can you become the CEO of the company? Do you even want to be the CEO of a company? Those types of things. Where are you going with your career, and what's limiting you? Because oftentimes I would tell my clients that your problem is 6 inches big. The challenge is those 6 inches are between your ears, right? Because oftentimes it is a mental game in terms of blockages, whether it be career or personal. It is something that you want to cultivate. So same sort of things like meditation, mindfulness, the work, those can definitely help you with your mindset. And also that has to do with your attitude, right? Do you think you can do it, right? Do you think you'll be able to learn and grow if you can adopt that kind of growth mindset that was popularized by Dr. Carol Dweck, right? So thinking about that versus the fixed mindset, which means, well, I was just either born with it or not, right? But everyone can actually grow into it if they choose to, right? So making sure that you take that choice and grow with it. Another key skill set in the professional world is to get things done, to be able to execute, to be able to organize, right? So oftentimes getting like a project management certification would be great, but not everybody needs to go to that level. But being able to run things and organize them, get them done, follow through, that's just a key skill. Showing up on time, right? Those are skills that if you can cultivate and build at an early age, then those compound and really help you over the years. So making sure that you are that person who is considered reliable, the go-to person to get things done. And if that's not you, well, what systems, what things, what help can you put into place in order to get that done? And another interesting thing about professional development is creativity. Right? And a lot of people don't understand that creativity is actually a skill you can cultivate, right? So if you think about who are the most creative people in the world, Well, they're kids, so you're actually born creative. Now it's society and things like that that kind of beat it out of you, so to speak, right? So in school they tell you don't do this, don't do that, sit still and stop, color in the lines, and don't do things that you shouldn't be doing. Well, and to cultivate the creativity gets taken out of us, right? So we need to just go back into the creativity gym and exercise. So thinking about how can you be creative, right? How can you think about how to combine different things? There's a concept called info sponging, right? Basically you can take things from different areas and say, what would happen if you combine them, right? Something that you know here very well, and then combine it with something else and help you to continue to learn and grow in that regard, right? Even thinking about, well, taking a use of, let's say, a paper cup. What are the multiple ways you can use it? Well, you can use it to drink, obviously. You can turn it into a hat. You can turn it and poke a hole and turn it into a megaphone, right? Can you come up with 20 ideas for any random thing that's around your office, around your house? Just taking that to creativity. And there'll be a whole bunch of useless ideas, but there'll be that one that's inspiring and helps transform the world, transforms your world, right? So understanding that creativity is a skill if you decide to cultivate it and grow it, right? Think of it like a muscle where you need to exercise it on a regular and on a daily basis if you want it to actually grow, right? So all of us are creative, and it's not necessarily in the kind of fine arts creative where it's drawing or sculpting or whatever. It could be a new business model, right? It could be new technology. It could be new whatever. Oftentimes creativity can be a lot more than that. And the last one that I put in the professional development area is leadership, right? And you don't need a formal title to be a leader, right? So you don't have to be the CEO or something. You can lead in any seat, right? And leading is just being able to create a vision, surround yourself with the right people in order to get it done, and then helping them when there is an issue, right? So whether you are the newest intern on the team, well, what does the group need to do? Right? And can you paint that picture of, okay, I think it would be a great idea if we did this, right? And then the team might be just you. It might be just whatever resources that you can muster, but then getting it done, right? And then being that kind of beacon of hope, that beacon of possibility for people to follow. And then as you are able to grow and do more things, then you can get more and more responsibility. You can get promoted and move up the ranks, right? And then you may formally get the title in order for you to do that. So just keep in mind that leadership takes takes many forms, and you can take a look at things like Leadership Reinvented by Hamza Khan, or you can take a look at books like Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, right? So there's a lot of great books on leadership, different types of leadership. Servant leadership is a pretty common one, but there are other ones going where you want to make sure that you pick a style that resonates with you and hopefully helps affect change for the folks around you, right? So those are the kind of main areas where presumably you're an area that you want to grow into. So you found kind of your purpose, and it's often good to consider doing the 5-2-2-1 exercise over the course of a couple of weeks, and periodically you want to reevaluate what's working for you. What I encourage folks to do, especially when you're starting your career, is to write your retirement memo. And what that is when you're, imagine that you're 65, right? And that's a typical retirement age in Canada, but whatever age you plan on retiring. And if you think about your career and imagine that it turned out pretty much exactly as you had hoped, as you had wanted, right? What happened? Right? What are those things that took place? So if you can think about that career path, right? And you might have a couple of different flavors, right? You might have one continuing on your current path. What if you decide to start your own business? What if you start to do this and that or whatever? So figuring out how do you grow in terms of the areas that you want, right? And then periodically reflect and say, okay, am I on this path? Do I want to turn it into an actual goal instead of being a dream? Right? Because it's a dream if you just imagine it. It's a goal if you actually take action towards it, right? So thinking about what those things are and which ones resonate for you, because it might have been a dream for you when you were 12 years old or whatever, but now it's not really as interesting as you made it out to be. So just considering what those things are and going for it, because there's a quote I quite like, all roads are correct if you don't know where you're going. So pick a path on which you want to grow. So one of the different variants for your retirement memo, and then continue on that path. One of the growth areas that I found a lot more recent grads taking a look at least, is to develop some sort of side hustle, right? So entrepreneurship is one of those things where it has a bit of a following right now, and a lot of people want to be the founder or creator or something. So essentially, what you can explore doing is working from 9 to 5, and hopefully you're getting a lot of great education, great learning, great experience from that. But you might have a different area where you can't get that in your day job. So think about exploring a side hustle. And now that doesn't mean that you have to do it, but I do find that it is an area of interest that a lot more people are exploring. So it could be just selling something online, right? So maybe it's arranging to create a product and have it available on Amazon to have it kind of drop ship somewhere. Or maybe it's a service, so something that you can do for someone and other people out there, whether it be website development or some sort of consulting or advisory, career coaching, whatever it might be. Take a look at it, because it might be one of those things where you might not want it as a full-time job, but as a hobby, maybe to earn some extra pocket money, that sort of thing. It might be a useful endeavor to take a look at. And then you might find a lot of different areas that you can explore and be curious about and bring that to your main job as well. And then again, it might satisfy some of those interesting things related to your retirement memo or some other growth areas in the future, right? So thinking about growing yourself, and if you are one of the fortunate recent grads who was able to land yourself a job in the area that you wanted to be in and that area of interest, then take advantage of that, right? So grow it personally, right? Whether it be your physical health, your mental health, your financial or your relationship health, and professionally as well, be it your communication, your social acumen, your thinking, your mindset, your execution, creativity, and leadership. So take a look at all of those different areas where you can grow. And the point is to grow, right? To actually take the time to invest the time in yourself and have yourself grow. Because if you grow yourself, let's say at 1% every day, then over the course of the year, you grow at 37%, and then compound that even more, then you grow and grow and grow. And that's how you really become successful in your life. And keep in mind that you can change, right? So your interest, that area of interest you want to get into, might not be the same thing after you've been doing it for 7 years, for 10 years, that sort of thing, even for 3 years, right? So you might want to do the kind of side hustle. You might want to switch careers and all that sort of stuff. And hopefully you'll be on a career path to your success, and maybe leverage a lot of the tools that we mentioned in order for you to do so. So that kind of ends our series on recent grads, and hopefully it gives you a high-level overview. So whether you were a recent grad that was looking for a job or landed a job but not necessarily the one they wanted, or for this episode, if you were a recent grad who landed a job in the area that you want to go into and just want to continue to grow, hopefully you'll be able to use all those things to put yourself on a path to career success. So thanks for joining and listening, and we'll see you in a future episode. Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.